Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Fantasy Roundup here on bet.nola.com. I'm Zach Ewing. That is Spencer the Guru Urquhart, and we're here for another week of your questions, your comments, your fantasy concerns, and also our advice as we look back at the week that was, talk about the week to come, waiver wire advice. Got to hit those waiver wires tonight. DFS advice, and also, Spencer, I just listened to Round Ball Rock, so I'm pumped up for this, but some fantasy basketball rankings as well.
Let's get it. Yeah, I'm excited, man. We got, of course, football hot and heavy at midway point, week 7. I'm going in, this is hell week, man, because all these bye weeks, all these teams on bye week, the Vikings, Rams, Eagles, and Bills all on bye. But at least we got fantasy basketball to talk about, and, of course, all the waiver wire additions for this week, because y'all going to need them with all these studs out.
Yeah, and it seems like it's especially a problem at receiver. The teams you mentioned, Cooper Kupp's out, Stephon Diggs is out, Justin Jefferson's out, AJ Brown. Yeah, it's going to be it's going to be kind of gnarly especially if you have two of those guys in your lineup by chance. Maybe they were two of your first 3 picks, and you're really going to have to figure some things out for this week. But like we talk about in the preseason when you're drafting, like, you shouldn't shy away from the bye weeks. I don't let that affect me too much. If I happen to pick 2 guys, you don't want all guys with a week 6 bye week. But if you pick 2 or a week 7 bye week, and okay, well, you lose this week, but you have a great team every other week, I think we'd all take that trade-off.
Yeah, that's the situation I'm in one of my leagues. I've got basically my entire start lineup on bye week. Josh Allen, Justin Jefferson, Allen Robinson that picked up Skowronek for the Rams. It's a 2 flex league. And then Khalil Shakir on my bench, KJ Osborne on my bench. So even all my bench players are on bye week. And I think one of my running backs was too. So it's wild. I'm just going to have to piecemeal it together. Got Garrett Wilson, Robert Woods in there. I don't even have a third receiver as of now because all my guys are out. But, just take it as I'm in first place in the league. So even if I lose this week, like you said, Zach, small trade-off for what's been a successful team, because all those teams on bye this week have pretty much been great for fantasy.
Exactly, and then you will get the advantage in the coming weeks when your opponents have to have buys and you've gotten rid of all of yours. So if you punt 1 week, you punt 1 week. We got a question here from Elias, screwed in fantasy with Kupp and Josh Allen on bye. I'm going to assume you mean Curtis Samuel, not Deebo Samuel, because otherwise you wouldn't really be screwed. But pick 2 to start. I kind of like Kirk and Dobbs, Spencer. What are you thinking?
Yeah, this is interesting. I might go Rondale Moore because, the Saints secondary hadn't been too good. And, Hopkins is just coming back. Robbie Anderson was just acquired. So I'm thinking I'd go Rondale. And who would know? It was Samuel and... Yeah, Curtis, he said. And, Kirk. Yeah, I don't know about Curtis because of Heinecke. We don't know what kind of chemistry they have. So I go Kirk and Rondale.
Yeah, and I'm going. I think I'll go Dobbs in that situation. Sorry, having just a little bit of an audio problem there. I do want to remind you that the Fantasy Roundup is brought to you by Caesars Sportsbook. We do have a couple of exciting things for you this week, special promos just for our listeners. The first one is if you're a new user, you register for a Caesars Sportsbook account and make at least a $5 bet by Friday, you are automatically entered for 2 tickets to the Pelicans home opener Sunday at the Smoothie King Center against the Utah Jazz. Use promo code Pelicans Tickets or just go to nola.com/PelsTix. That's TIX. And you are entered with just a minimum of a $5 bet by Friday. If you've already signed up for the Caesars Sportsbook app, husband, wife, brother, sister, friend, any of that works, sign them up, get them to make a $5 bet, and they'll be entered for those 2 tickets. And since you told them about it, it's only fair that they take you to the game then if they win. The other one, if you're not interested in the Pelicans, or let's say you live in Baton Rouge or thereabouts, you can do the same thing, and you have actually until next Monday to do this, and you win 2 tickets to the LSU-Alabama game. So enter by October the 24th, make that $5 bet, and you're entered to win 2 tickets to LSU-Alabama, which could end up being a pretty darn big game if LSU can beat Ole Miss this weekend. That will be a headliner game, just as much as an LSU-Alabama game typically is. Elias, how am I supposed to go to NOLA? Well, what you do is you invite somebody to go with you who's got a car, and, you guys figure it out. We'll figure out parking for you, too. 2 tickets to the Pelicans game or 2 tickets to the LSU-Alabama game if you go that route. That one is promo code LSU Tickets or NOLA.com/LSU Tickets. So check that out today. Let us know if you took advantage of that, got your name in the drawing for that, or if you had any trouble, let us know that as well, and we'll figure it out for you. But in the meantime, Spencer, we'll go rolling on. Powered by Caesars Sportsbook, we're going to look at last week's top scorers at each position, as we always do. In Week 6, avert your eyes, Saints fans, because it was a big week for the Bengals offense.
Right, yeah, Joey Burrow, baby. What a show. I mean, just he started off kind of slow. It looked like the Saints were getting to him, but he turned up there in the fourth quarter and ended up being the top scorer in QB. Can't say I'm surprised there considering how beat up the Saints are. A name I am surprised at, though, Matt Ryan. Wow, he really kind of turned back the clock there at a big passing day and showing that he's not dead yet. He's not as what he once was, but he's still a decent fantasy option. We'll get to him later for waiver wire pickups. And a couple more surprises there, Trevor Lawrence and Marcus Mariota. And, of course, no surprise there with Josh Allen.
Not as good as he once was, but he's as good once as he ever was. Pour one out for Toby Keith and Matt Ryan. It wasn't a great scoring week, period, in fantasy football, especially in the running back side. Here's the top running backs. Deon Jackson, he caught like 9 passes. That's part of that. And then he actually left the game injured. So I don't know that you want to go running to the waiver wires to pick him up with Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines possibly coming back. But if you happen to pick up Deon Jackson and start him, that was an electric decision.
Right, yeah, because he had the 10 catches, too, with Nyheim Hines out. And so he was basically doing it all. He was getting the early downs and the receptions. So it'll be interesting to see if either of those two come back, Taylor or Hines. Of course, scale back Jackson's workload. But if one of them or both's out again, then, of course, he'll still be an RB1. The thing is, I'm expecting at least Hines for sure should be back because I don't think his concussion was that bad, or I think he should be back. Taylor, though, they're not sure the severity of his ankle sprain. If that's a high ankle sprain, he might be out again, in which case Jackson could still be pretty good. And Ramondre Stevenson, another one that's taking advantage of an injured running back, Damien Harris. He's become the workhorse there in New England. And I feel like even when Harris comes back, Stevenson still a must start. And then those other 3 were the usual suspects. Oh, you're on mute, Zach.
Yeah, Eckler, McCaffrey, and Leonard Fournette rounding out that top 5. Josh asks, he's got 3 starters with bye weeks. Is Deon Jackson worthy of my 3rd drop? Like you said, Spencer, Nyheim Hines likely coming back. That's a tough one, though. I don't know who else you have as a possible drop, but I don't hate the idea of dropping Deon Jackson.
Yeah, I don't know who else you have, but I'd consider keeping him because if Taylor and Hines or even if one's out again, he showed he can run on early downs or catch passes. So unless you have a stacked team, in which case, don't drop some of your stuff. But if you have some kind of suspect bench players, some of the guys that we'll get to on you gotta go, then I'd consider keeping Jackson.
Another question from Cameron says he's got a claim open to pick Jahan Dotson off waivers and drop KJ Osborne. Wants to keep Eagles defense. Should he cancel the Dotson claim and pick up the Miami D? And then he says if the Dotson claim goes through, he'd have to drop Hines, Knox, Madison, Dotson, or Goff to pick up that defense. It's a 16 team league. It's hard to say. I don't know. Is Jared Goff your starting quarterback? Do you have another quarterback? I don't hate the idea of dropping
Goff. I'd probably drop Goff. I know it's 16 teams. Single QB, though. Goff's not too good. And I'd also, I know the Eagles' defense has been good, but even in a 16-team league, I'm in a few deeper leagues, and you can still stream defenses. So I wouldn't be opposed to cutting the Eagles' defense, because if your league's defense settings are like most leagues, it's all about defensive touchdowns, which are very random, even for a great defense like the Eagles. Unless your league is more based off of yards allowed and points allowed, which in that case, I'd want to keep one strong defense, and the Eagles qualifies that. But if you're in the regular settings where the defenses are total crapshoots, and I'd say drop them and add Dotson. And then the Dolphins, you could just drop, I guess, Golf to make sure you have a defense for this week.
Yeah, the Eagles do play a very light schedule down the stretch, and so I don't mind the idea of hanging on to them. I think I drop Goff first because he seems a little more replaceable. Going back to Josh's question about Deon Jackson, is Antonio Gibson.
Yeah, I don't know who I'd cut. Probably Gibson because of Brian Robinson and McKissick is still there. There's not going to be much work left over for Gibson, probably.
Yeah, so that's the Guru's answer on that. Moving on to wide receivers. Again, that Bengals offense, Jamar Chase, huge fourth quarter, getting up to 32.2 points. And this was really a case of the cream rising to the top for the receivers here. Didn't see a Cooper Kupp or a Justin Jefferson, but all five of these guys were drafted pretty high. Brandon Ayuk finally getting going.
Right. Yeah, the top three, all the usual suspects, top flight, elite wide receivers. Even Michael Pittman, I mean, he's someone that I feel should have been started throughout the most leagues because he's still, I'd say, a top 10 receiver. And then Ayuk was a big surprise. Normally that's Debo up there, but yeah, Ayuk really showed out. Took advantage of a soft matchup against the Chiefs. And with the 49ers not really having much outside of him, Debo and Kittle, he should at least be a solid flex moving forward.
Yeah, I had a league where I started Jacoby Myers over Brandon Ayuk, and luckily still won the league, partly because I had Michael Pittman as well. So made the wrong decision, still came out okay. Tight ends. Spencer, you were ready to give up on Mike Gesicki, and he said, watch this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still not buying him, but yeah, he definitely had a big week this week. He's just with the way the Dolphins are, I feel like the way the offense funnels through Hill and Waddle, I wouldn't count on him moving forward. But all these other ones, I mean, we know Andrews and Kelsey. We know what they do. Kittle, of course, when he's healthy, you got to play him. And Robert Tonyan might be a sneaky option because he got a lot of targets this week. With Aaron Rodgers, if he's kind of not, if he's not trusting his receivers, then Robert Tonyan might be a sneaky PPR play.
Absolutely. By the way, the Vikings, we talk about what the Dolphins did. The Vikings are 5-1. You can target that defense. Everybody seems to be able to throw on that team. And a lot of times the Vikings have the lead, and so they are going to throw. And so it's not a bad thing to do to target that D going forward. Spencer, your fantasy star, we already talked about him, but for week 6 is none other than the LSU product, Joe Burrow.
Right, yeah, I had to go with Joe. I got him in a couple leagues. And one of them was kind of close against my cousins, but Burrow I had Chase too, so I could have gone with either one. But I went with Burrow since he had the highest score out of anybody. And, surprising, I mean, he had a nice week, but normally there's somebody that would score like 35, 40, but just kind of a down week overall.
Yep, it was. And in fact, I think I had the highest score in one league with like 125 points, which is usually not enough to get that done. But everybody kind of struggled. So that was the story for week 6. And by the way, that's the second time in 3 weeks our fantasy star has been a guy who played against the Saints a couple weeks ago, is Justin Jefferson. So it's that Saints defense has got some work to do in the secondary. I know they're beat up, but we'll see if the Cardinals cut him apart, then you've got some problems because the Cardinals are really struggling.
Yeah, for sure. And they, with all the new additions there, it's going to be interesting. But for fantasy, though, I like Kyler Murray this week because the Saints struggle against mobile QBs.
Yeah, and he's been struggling a little bit, so you might be able to sneak a start in on him, or maybe even trade for him if you are struggling at QB and see if you can get a second half bounce back. Other guys to pick up, speaking of quarterbacks, Matt Ryan, you mentioned him, and then a couple of guys at the bottom of this list, Alec Peters and Daniel Bellinger, have both been on your list before. So Spencer told you. A couple weeks later, they're a little bit higher owned, but you can still get either one of these guys, Pierce or Bellinger, in most leagues.
Yeah, the one I'm really pounding the table for is Alec Peters. This is the third week in a row I've had him on this list, yet he's still rostered under 30% of leagues. It blows my mind. All that guy does is put up double-digit fantasy points each week. I know he's a rookie, but he's showing that the future is now for him. He's not just a dynasty stash. He's a solid flex play. So please pick him up if you haven't already, because he's showing that he's a staple in what's become a pretty pass-heavy attack there, with Jonathan Taylor not really having the year we were expecting. And then Latavius Murray's another one after last night's show. And I'd say if you need a running back, he's a must-add, because with Russell Wilson far from cooking, they're going to have to rely on the run, and Murray's somebody that, I mean, he's not going to put up pretty production as far as catching a lot of passes, but he'll grind out those early down yards and probably score a touchdown or two a lot of weeks.
And you've been pretty low on Melvin Gordon all year long. He continues to get carries, even when Javonte Williams was healthy, Melvin Gordon getting carries. But you can kind of see that starting to trend down.
Oh, yeah, he got benched last night. He was just standing there for the whole second half, like looking like dumbfounded, which, I mean, and Nathaniel Hackett's an idiot. To me, they should have at least played him a little bit here and there. He's got to be better than Mike Boone, but that's a whole nother discussion, man. The Denver Broncos, what a mess.
I mean, I'm toward you and I both are toward the end of our survivor pools, and a lot of people, not a lot of people, but a decent chunk had picked the Chargers last night, and the Broncos are just giving that game away. Was frustrating to watch, but that's what we call in the business a segue to Spencer's "You Gotta Go" segment, because the first name listed here, the Russell Wilson and Melvin Gordon.
Right, yeah. To me, you can't trust these guys anymore, especially Russ. You know, Russ is just QBs, or I know there's some good ones on bye, but there's got to be better options than Russell Wilson. I mean, I don't know if I think a lot of it has to do with he's injured, because I can't believe his play has gone that bad. Like he's got to be hurt, but if he's hurt that bad, he needs to sit. You know, like Jameis Winston's been doing with the Saints, sit, rest up. I know he's the $250 man or whatever, but you're hurting your team right now. So for fantasy, definitely you can't trust that. And Melvin Gordon, after getting benched last night, he's looking like he's falling to third on the depth chart. They can't have a third string running back on your fantasy team. Same thing with Cam Akers. He was a healthy scratch, might get traded, and even if he does get traded, I don't see him having much value, because the Rams are a good offense. If he can't thrive with the Rams, then I don't know what's the deal. And then Elijah Moore, no targets this week. Very concerning there.
Yeah, speaking of Cam Akers, it used to be sort of this theory in sports that if you had an Achilles, that was a long-term thing and you might never be the same. And Kobe Bryant and some other guys kind of changed that a little bit. Say, oh, yeah, you can come back from an Achilles. But I still think there's certain cases, and it may be too early to say that Cam Akers is for sure one of these cases, but he does not look the same as he did pre-injury, and it's now been more than a year.
Yeah, and then even James Robinson, I know he got off to the hot start, but the past few weeks, he's stunk. You know, yeah, coming off an Achilles, that's a brutal injury. That's about the worst injury possible for an NFL athlete. So there's no surprise that those guys are struggling. Akers, though, his occurred like really early in the offseason in 2021. So I had some more hope for him as opposed to Robinson, but he's just been awful. And apparently it's become a personal rift between him and the Rams, because I'm sure would have been active if not for that, but apparently he's not happy and wants out of there.
I need you to keep throwing my 2 yards per carry out there, Coach. I'm upset.
I guess. I mean,
he's not producing.
Exactly.
You don't produce.
That's why even if he gets traded, I don't want him on my team. Who are they going to trade him to? I don't know. He can't really trade him to the 49ers. That's a division. Let's just say for the purposes of this exercise, that's where he goes, the 49ers. I don't want him there. I mean, I don't see where he's any better than Jeff Wilson.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Josh asked, should I trade Drake London for Damien Pierce? I would say yes. It depends a little bit on the construction of your team, but I think Pierce more valuable right now.
Oh, most definitely, because Atlanta Atlanta's a run-first offense, and Houston's becoming a run-first offense. So, of course, I'm going to want the running back in a run-first offense, on which there's very few offenses these days that trust a bell cow running back, but the Texans seem to be one of those throwbacks that's doing that. And Atlanta, they run a lot, but it's more of a two-headed monster. But I mean, we're talking about Drake London here. It's really hurt Drake London. He got off to a hot start, thinking he might have a nice rookie year, but the way things are trending, I don't think he's someone you can trust.
Uncle Big Nick says CMC is going to the Niners.
Ooh,
those have been the rumors. I don't think it's confirmed.
Yeah,
Uncle Big Nick, if that's confirmed, tell us, because we missed that. But I don't think it's confirmed. But I have heard those rumors, and certainly would be very helpful for San Francisco.
Oh, that'd be insane. They need to have CMC, Debo, Ayuk, Kittle. Jimmy G could stink and he'd still be good because all those players and their defense is good. Yeah, Jim can say what he wants, but you be in. Don't worry about your Niners. They're going to be okay.
You just run the Wildcat with Debo and McCaffrey back there and run like a read option. Yeah, and they are just rumors at this point. But, yeah, they have been swirling, and they've got the draft pick capital. Like the Rams couldn't get McCaffrey. They don't have the draft picks. But the Niners could potentially. And that would really swing the balance in the NFC, I feel like. So something to keep an eye on. Want to move on and talk some Week 7 DFS. Spencer, here are your best buys for the week.
Yeah, going with a super deep dive at quarterback this week, Davis Mills. But it's because he's going against the Raiders, and I feel like the game script could play in his favor. To where if the Raiders get off to the early lead, that could force the Texans to throw, in which case Davis Mills could put up some good garbage time numbers and be a solid play there. And it's like you could stack the rest of your team by taking a quarterback that cheap. You could stack, running backs, receivers. You could put Kelsey in there. Just have a whole bunch of studs. And as long as Mills delivers like 15, 20 points, you can still have a shot with studs throughout the rest of the deal. And one of those that I really like this week is Josh Jacobs, because I think the Raiders are going to score a lot of points on the Texans, and Jacobs has become a workhorse there in Vegas. And then CD Lamb, a juicy matchup against the Lions, and should have Dak Prescott back. And then Kyle Pitts showed some promise last week, finally caught a touchdown, and has a pretty good matchup this week against Cincinnati.
Yep, and that's one thing about DFS. Look at game scripts, because I know we talk about stacks. Okay, I'm going to stack Davis Mills with Brandon Cooks. Okay, well, you could do that. That's one way to look at it. But you can also go to the other side and say, well, if the Raiders have a lead and it's going to force the Texans to throw, which we know is an important thing to look for in a quarterback, what are the Raiders going to be doing? They're going to be trying to burn the clock. Texans can't really stop the run. Here goes Jacobs. One game could get you a bunch of points there. And so that's what you really have to do. If you can nail 2 or 3 game scripts, that's how you win, or at least place very highly in those GPPs. Spencer, our sleepers for Week 7, another quarterback that you like.
Right, yeah, Tua Tagovailoa is supposed to be back this week and draws a nice matchup against Pittsburgh. I know Tom Brady struggled against them, but that's a Tom Brady issue. I think that's more has to do with Tom Brady being in a funk than it has to do with the Steelers being good on defense. The Steelers have been pretty consistently bad against the pass this year. And the Dolphins, even without Tua, still had a pretty solid passing game, to where with him set to return, assuming he's 100%, which I believe he will be, they're going to be extra cautious. They wouldn't be taking him out of protocol unless they're 100% sure that he'll be ready. So with all that factored in, I think he'll have a huge week this week against Pittsburgh. And I think you're on mute still, Zach.
Sorry about that. I think I'm going with the rookie receiver from Green Bay, Romeo Doubs, because Green Bay's got nobody healthy to catch passes. They're going up against Washington. It's essentially a must-win for this team. I know it's been ugly, but I do think they're going to throw the ball quite a bit, and I like the idea of Doubs having maybe kind of a breakout game.
All in with Doubs this week. I could maybe see it. Just with the way Green Bay's passing game's been going, it's just hard for me to trust anyone there outside of Lazard and maybe Robert Tonyan. I mean, Doubs, though, is somebody that I feel like it's kind of risky, but he could end up really good. I feel like, though, the target share isn't quite high enough for me to feel confident.
I believe he did get 9 targets last week, but only 4 catches. So they are going to him. And again, that's why he's a sleeper. It's a low-price DFS or a bye-week fill-in, that type of thing. But he is there. So that's our take in football. Ask any more questions if you have them. Nick says, what about Heinecke? How do you like Taylor Heinecke this week in a DFS scenario?
Yeah, he's interesting. I thought about maybe going with him as a cheap option. I'm thinking that Green Bay bounces back this week. Like their defense is I feel like better than it's been the past couple weeks, and Zach Wilson didn't do anything last week. It was all the running game. I mean, Daniel Jones didn't do much against them. It's not like their defense has been getting lit up. So I personally wouldn't want Heinecke this week.
Yeah, Green Bay is a pretty good secondary. I don't think they get enough credit for that, but they do have a good secondary out there. So I would be careful with Heinecke as well. Want to pivot here for the last 10 minutes or so, and we note that the NBA season starts tonight here in about 3.5 hours. Exciting time, Spencer. You and I had our draft on Sunday. And so we want to go through your positional rankings here. And first up, actually, I'm sorry. We got to do our listener league. Almost forgot. Listener League. Bucktown Rebel is 6-0. Hat tip to you, sir.
Oh, man, yeah. I was his latest victim this week. My goodness, this team is so loaded, man. It's wild. I tried to make a trade with him a couple weeks back, but let's just say he did not want any part of it, and I don't blame the man. I mean, he's undefeated, kicking everybody's butt. So, I mean, hey, if you want to trade, though, hit me up. I'm always down to trade. I've got some good pieces, man. I got CMC, Chubb, and Barkley. So even though my team's struggling, it's not like my team's trash. I mean, I've got some quality pieces, but just my receivers, though, I gotta say, I've got a great running back room, and my receivers have not shown out. And I need a better quarterback, man. I picked up Dak. I'm hoping Dak will help out my QB situation because Matthew Stafford has been trash. And yeah, look away, UB.
Speaking of trash, last place, Uncle Big Nick. You know what I'm looking forward to, Spencer? I would love to see, and of course I want one of those 4 playoff spots for myself, but I want to see Guru Squad and boom, down goes the Guru battling it out for the last playoff spot.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. That's Tommy. He's really picked it up lately. He was off the bad start. I was clowning him, but he's won his last 2. Now he got the same record. So I'm not sure when we play. Probably pretty soon. So I'm gonna have to defend my honor in that one.
That will be a true fantasy football rivalry. Okay, yes. I'm sorry, I jumped the gun. You're watching Fantasy Roundup. Now we're going to talk some basketball with opening day tonight. The Pelicans open tomorrow night. And by the way, just as a reminder, you can get into a drawing for 2 free tickets to the Pelicans home opener on Sunday by going to NOLA.com/PelsTIX and signing up for Caesar Sportsbook, making at least a $5 bet by Friday. So you have a couple of days yet to do that, and you can get those free Pels tickets. We will start with fantasy basketball rankings on the guard side, Spencer.
For sure. Yeah, I had to, I did it to where some guys have multi-position eligibility, but I made it to where I've just went with each player's primary position. And so, yeah, Luka Doncic mainly playing guard now for the Mavericks, and he's just elite, man. Him, Jokic, and Giannis are the clear-cut top 3. But as far as guards, Luka's definitely the top option there. And then Ja Morant and Trae Young they've established themselves as superstars, and they're both first-round picks, I'd say. And then, of course, the salty veteran still in the mix there, Steph Curry and Dame Lillard. The name I'm not quite as high on as the consensus is LaMelo Ball. Everyone loves LaMelo Ball, and rightfully so. He's a stud in the making. But I feel like people might be reaching for him a little bit. He's still very young, might still be a little inconsistent, and he's already battling injuries. I think he's out for the opener, they said, to where it's like, I don't know. I just don't feel like he's quite worthy of a first-round pick yet. I'd love him in the second, but for my first-round pick, I don't think I could trust him yet. And same goes with Tyrese Halliburton. He's another one that's really rising up board. He tends to go later, though, so I would, from a value perspective, prefer Halliburton, and then Booker and Cade Cunningham studs. Deontay Murray, I know Murray went to the Hawks, but he's still a stud.
One name I have to ask you about who's not on that list, who's ADP. These ADPs, by the way, are from ESPN. his ADP is well within that sort of top 25 range, but you don't have him in your top 10, would be Philly's own James Harden.
Yeah, I didn't put the beard on there. I was close to putting him, and I was like, I just couldn't, because with the 76ers, he's had a reduced role, and I don't see that changing. He's more of a facilitator, where he'll still put up double-doubles, being that he averages like 10 assists a game now. But as far as fantasy, he's not getting the volume of scoring that he once did. So it was really close for me between him and Dejounte Murray. But I went with Murray because I feel like he's still got untapped potential. Harden's kind of on the back nine of his career, where Murray's just coming into his own, I feel.
Maybe get that pick. I still think Harden will put up some good numbers, though, if you can get a value on him. Moving on to forwards, we see a familiar name there for Pelicans fans, Zion Williamson. This is where a couple of real fantasy stars reside, though. A couple of guys in Durant and James who have been top 10 picks basically their entire careers, and Giannis as well.
Right. Yeah, I know the forwards landscape isn't quite as top heavy as it used to be. Normally, you'd have like 5 or 6 elite forwards that would go in the first round, but this year it's a little different. Giannis, Tatum, and KD probably don't, and then LeBron is still elite. But I feel like with LeBron and even KD, it's kind of hard to trust them as first round picks, because they're at an age to where they're great on a per game basis, but they're probably going to miss anywhere from 10 to 20 games due to either, injuries, load management, like to where it's not as bad as Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard, per game, he's definitely top 10, probably top 5, but with the load management and coming off an ACL, I want no part of Kawhi Leonard. And I know KD and LeBron are still, like I said, they're still elite on per game, but they're hard to trust. And then DeMar DeRozan, Paul George, couple other veterans in the mix, but they're better values for sure. I could see myself targeting them in the third round potentially. And then Zion, I know Zion's got the injury concerns, but man, on a per game basis, this dude's got first round pick potential. So he went a little too high in our league, Zach. But if Zion would fall to the third or maybe fourth round, give him to me there all day.
I couldn't believe how early he went. I went looking for him in like the third round, thinking I was going to reach for him, and he's already gone.
Yeah, he went in the second. I was like, okay, all right. Well, I guess I'll be without him then.
Yeah, you can have him if you're going to take him in the second. I do think one thing to keep an eye out for is how your league is structured. If it's a category league, you need those guys who are going to be in there every day. If it's a points league and you have a pretty deep bench, kind of like our league is set up, the per game becomes more important, because there aren't that many nights when every guy on your roster is going to be playing. And so if you can take the guys who are benched and you can just move them in and out of your lineup and still rack up points and have them when they do play, that can be more valuable than it would be otherwise, I feel like.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, in our draft, the pick that I can't say I regretted it, because this guy's got some untapped potential, but I know his per game wasn't quite as good as I thought. Was the young Raptors forward Scotty Barnes? I think he's gonna be nice this year, but I may have took him a little too high, because on a per game he's not quite as good. He'd probably be better suited for a categories league, but hopefully he can keep putting up numbers. But yeah, but that is a good point. Gotta in leagues like this, like ours, is more probably like KD and LeBron would still be first rounders. But as far as categories, I want no part of those guys.
Yeah. Finally, centers. Nikola Jokic, still the maybe not consensus top pick, because I think sometimes Giannis gets picked first too, but still the top dog in fantasy. Joel Embiid, and then it really, with centers, okay, we'll put Cat in that category, and then it drops off a little bit. If you don't get one of those top three, you can probably wait a little bit.
Yeah, I was glad to get Embiid, and ours I had fifth pick. I was thinking because to me there was a clear-cut top four: Jokic, Giannis, Doncic, and Embiid. So I was thinking, man, if I don't get one of those four, I don't know who I'm gonna go with. But Embiid fell, and so I got him there at 5. But yeah, Cat's strong, but outside of him, AD. A lot of people are down on AD, but I'm thinking he might have a little bit of a bounce back this year. I know he's another one that's probably going to miss games, but with LeBron getting older, AD's going to have to shoulder more of the load there for the Lakers. So I'm thinking he's actually become a pretty good value. Same with Sabonis, who's actually a King now. He should be the primary option for the Kings. Yeah, I got him in our league in the 3rd round, and I think he's gonna really do well. Also eligible at power forward. Him and Pascal Siakam similar. And then the name like to address here is a Rudy Gobert. I'm kind of down on him compared to the consensus because I think with him and Cat teaming up, we're not exactly sure how it's going to play out, but I think Cat's going to still get his where Gobert with Anthony Edwards there too. Like Gobert's scoring is probably going to be even more limited than it was in Utah.
All right, so basketball season starts tonight. Plenty of DFS to play there as well, or you can still get in on season-long drafts, I'm sure, for the rest of the week. You're watching the Fantasy Roundup on bet.nola.com, brought to you by Caesars Sportsbook. We'll wrap things up with a few questions we've got here. Back to football. Karras says he traded Aaron Jones and Lockett for Jonathan Taylor and Claypool before Week 6. Claypool a surprise. Will Taylor be a game changer? I think you got the better end of that deal so long as Taylor does come back.
Yeah, I think so. I think he'll come back. Maybe not this week, but probably the week after. And if he's healthy, yeah, he's a game changer, huge upgrade over Aaron Jones. And that was actually a pretty fair deal because I think Lockett rest of season is better than Claypool. But that's a small sacrifice considering you're getting the best player in the deal there in JT.
I'm guessing, Karras, you're probably in pretty good shape in the standings. That's when you can afford to make a deal. Hey, I'll wait 3 weeks for Jonathan Taylor to come back, and then I'll have a better team in the playoffs. All right, Forrest says he has, he has Moffitt in Miami. I'm not sure I understand what that said.
CEH?
CEH. Okay.
Mostert.
Would you trade to get the running back Walker in Seattle? Who would you?
I would. Yeah,
if you can, I don't know if anybody will do it.
Yeah, I like Walker over Mostert and CEH. You can maybe even flip both of them for him because I'd flip 2 mediocre runners for a runner that I feel like Walker at this point, someone you can trust as every week starter.
Yeah, I agree, and I think if I'm the Walker owner, I'm not doing that deal. But that doesn't mean the Walker owner. Yeah, the Walker owner in your league might. And finally, Jason, full PPR, Jimmy or Tua. I'm going Tua there.
Yeah,
and a flex, sure. Olave, Lazard, or Keenan Allen. Olave is a go. He said that. But Keenan Allen probably has the highest ceiling there.
We don't know. So I'd go Olave because with Keenan Allen, a hamstring, must have been a more severe hamstring strain than we thought because he's been out now like a month, so we don't know what to expect of him. Give me Olave there. He should do well with Thomas and Landry likely out again.
Yeah, the issue there is Olave plays Thursday, and so I think you have to pull the trigger on that unless Keenan Allen, let's say he's a full practice participant Wednesday and Thursday, maybe then you roll the dice that he's going to be ready. But I don't see that happening. He hasn't practiced in a couple of weeks now, so I would go Olave unless you get some sort of assurance that Keenan Allen is going to start.
Yeah, even then I'd be a little nervous because with hamstrings, I know he's had plenty of time to heal, so he probably wouldn't re-aggravate it. But you never know. Watch, he comes back and boom, he injures it. So I would, I definitely would go Olave.
Yeah. I think that'll do it for us, Spencer, unless you have anything else for Week 7 to come or the way this season is going.
All right, yeah. I think a good way to end it. Had to appreciate all the audience participation today. Had a lot of questions, and we're always here. Social media at Spencer the Guru, Instagram, Twitter. We got you on there as well later in the week if y'all have last minute questions. But good show as always. Enjoyed it.
Absolutely. One more reminder: we're brought to you by Caesars Sportsbook. If you haven't signed up yet, you can do so. Enter for some LSU tickets against Alabama. Use the URL nola.com/LSU tickets. Spell out tickets for that one. Or if you prefer to enter for the Pelicans home opener, that would be nola.com/Pels Tix. Just TIX on that one. Got to sign up and make a $5 bet sometime this week on anything. And you might win the bet, and then you get money and you get entered for the draw. It's a good deal. So check that out. And in the meantime, Spencer and I will be back on Thursday for Bayou Bets at 4 o'clock. Jim will probably yell at us about something. It'll be a lot of fun. We'll talk Saints Cardinals. That's right. Well, he'll be mad about something. Somebody will go for it on 4th down, and his antenna will perk up, and that's how that'll go. So we'll see you at 4 o'clock on Thursday. Until then, everybody, thanks for watching the Fantasy Roundup.